Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Allie. I have a almost 9-month-old son named Hawk who is playing on the floor down here. I would love if you would subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. And today's video is going to be a very laid back one, obviously. I am sitting on my living room floor with my baby crawling around, but I have been promising this video for a long time and I am finally getting around to filming it. Sorry, buddy. I don't think so. Okay, I'm just gonna move the camera over here. Today's video is going to be all about my experiences with the Taking Cara Babies sleep training courses. We actually bought and did all 3 classes that she offers. We took her newborn sleep class. We bought the Navigating Months 3 and 4 PDF file that she sells, and we also did the ABCs of sleep when he was 6 months. And I have had a ton of requests to talk kind of more in depth about my experiences with them and what I think, if I recommend them, etc. So I think I'm just gonna go over what each class is, whether it worked for us or not. Okay, so a little backstory on us and me. I had no freaking clue what I was doing when Hawk was a newborn. I was so lost after he was born. I just had no idea what I was supposed to be doing, and I feel like I spent my entire pregnancy researching the wrong things. And for everything else, I just thought that I would figure it out as I went and that it would be fine. And I mean, it was fine, but man, there are a few things I wish I would have known beforehand. And if we eventually have more kids, there are things I will do majorly differently, especially with baby sleep, because you guys, I had no clue. I didn't know anything about wake windows, how much daytime sleep they should be getting, nighttime sleep, how often they needed to eat throughout the night. I didn't know anything. Like, you guys, I don't think that I ever put him down to sleep during the daytime in like his crib or bassinet. Like, I don't think I ever was like, oh, he needs to take a nap. Ever. Not one time until he was probably 6 weeks old. Like, it just never occurred to me, which is so silly thinking back on it now. I don't know, I just didn't know babies needed to take naps. Like, I just don't know what I was thinking. Like, obviously he was asleep so much of the time, but it was usually like when we were holding him, and we had like a bouncer that we would put him in when he was sleeping and stuff, just like next to us. But you know, like, I wasn't paying attention to his sleep. I wasn't tracking it. I wasn't like just anything. I was just totally going with the flow. My life felt like chaos, and like I was just free falling for the first like 8 to 10 weeks of his life. I just had no clue what was going on. And I don't know, like, for some people, going with the flow and doing that, if it works for you, it works for you, but it wasn't working for us. It made me very anxious. So then when Hawk was around, I think like 11 weeks, 11, 12 weeks, like, reached my breaking point and was like, we need help with this. And I had seen so many people recommending the Taking Cara Babies classes, so we bought the newborn sleep course. I think it's called like Will I Ever Sleep Again or something like that. So with that class, you get a really long PDF. I think it's like 30 pages long or something, that just has everything you need to know written out in there. You also have videos that accompany that, and the videos are basically her just kind of explaining and walking you through everything that's in the PDF file, which I think is super helpful. I'm sure if you went sleuthing around on the internet, you could find these PDF files. I really do think that the videos are valuable, and having someone kind of explain to you what is in that PDF and why and how to do it visually is really helpful. And I'm not going to go too in depth about what exactly goes on in each of these sleep classes, because it is someone else's business, and it's just like not my place to be giving away that kind of information, if you know what I mean. I'll like loosely kind of go over it a little bit. The newborn course by no means is sleep training. Like, obviously your newborn is way too young for any sort of sleep training. If anything, I feel like it trains the parents. It certainly trained me. I learned so much about baby sleep from that class that my mind was blown after I took it. I was like, what have I been doing? We really did see a huge difference very, very quickly once we started implementing her tips and advice and what she teaches you in that newborn class. Honestly, there's so much information in that newborn class, but it's like tips for calming your baby down, teaching you how to get your baby to fall asleep independently so that you don't have to be constantly rocking them to sleep. There's a lot of like example schedules for how your day should look, how many naps your baby needs to be taking. There's also appropriate wake windows for your baby's age, which is huge. And then probably like the best part of the newborn class, there is a whole part that teaches you how to increase the time between their night feedings so that they get longer stretches of sleep throughout the night. And it's basically a series of steps that you take. Like if your baby is fussing in the middle of the night, there are certain steps you take before intervening and feeding your baby. And those steps both kind of teach you that maybe your baby doesn't need to be eating as often as you think that they do. And it also kind of gives your baby just a few minutes to try to settle themselves back down. And it also gradually increases the amount of time that your baby can go between feedings at nighttime. Obviously, this is only appropriate once your baby has reached an appropriate weight and is able to go longer stretches of time between their night feedings, which your pediatrician should tell you. So double check with them before you do any program. But that taught me so much. I just remember being in bed and he would be in his bassinet next to me, and any time that he would make a sound at all, it didn't even have to be crying, if he was squirming or grunting or literally doing anything, I would pick him up and feed him because I thought that that's what you were supposed to do. And that was not just during the night, it was during the day too. Any time that he cried, I put him on my boob because I thought he was hungry. It never occurred to me that he was crying because he was tired. Never. Not once. You know, it'd be like every 2 hours, sometimes less at nighttime, he would wiggle around in his bassinet and I would immediately put him on my boob after I took that class and realized, okay, maybe I'm actually waking my baby up. Maybe when he's stirring around, he's not awake and he's not hungry. After implementing the steps that she gives you in that class, he went from sleeping 2 to maybe 3 hour stretches to like 4, 5, 6, 7 hour stretches very, very quickly. And that was such a rude awakening for me that he probably could have been doing that the whole time and that I was the one disrupting his sleep and not the other way around. I highly recommend the newborn class. If you're a first time mom, second time, third time, whatever time mom you are, I think that there's information in that class that everyone can benefit from. I just think it's really helpful and I definitely highly recommend that one. The next class that she offers, basically it's just a PDF. This one doesn't have any videos and it's not technically like a course or anything, but it is another long PDF and it's all about navigating months 3 and 4. Because babies go through a major sleep regression around that age. They go through a really big developmental leap where their sleep cycles change from newborn sleep cycles to more adult-like sleep cycles, which sucks. Those newborn sleep cycles are amazing. Basically, when they're really little like that, they have 2 sleep cycles. They have quiet sleep, which is just like the deepest sleep ever. That's when you're holding your baby in a room full of people and they are knocked the F out. Like, they can sleep so well. I don't remember what the other one is called, but that's when they're like a little bit more squirmy and more awake, but they're still sleepy. And then somewhere around 3 to 4 to 5-ish months, they normally go through a sleep regression, which is more like a sleep progression because, you know, they're developing forward, but their sleep changes a lot. That 4-month sleep regression hit us real hard. I feel like I hear a lot of people say too that if you know, like do the newborn class with them and really stick to it, they'll be able to like get through the 4-month sleep regression really well, and that you might not have to do more sleep classes or training after that. That wasn't the case for us. It was like everything that we learned from the newborn class that worked didn't work anymore, which makes sense because their sleep cycles are different. So I feel like I see in mom groups all the time these moms of newborn babies who are like bragging about how well they sleep and, oh, my baby sleeps through the night already at 2.5 months. And I'm like, just wait, Brittany, just wait till that baby is 4.5 months old. Like, then tell me how much you're gonna be bragging about their sleep. The Navigating Months 3 and 4 PDF is basically, it's very similar to the newborn class, but it basically explains their new sleep cycles and kind of how to deal with that, and all of the techniques that you used for extending their sleep in the newborn class you still use, but in the newborn class there was like a time that you did for each step and it was like a small amount of time. It was like a minute or less. And in the 3 to 4 month class, you had more time before you intervened. Honestly, there wasn't too much that I felt was super different in that class than the newborn class, and absolutely nothing we did worked for him through that regression. I think I've kind of heard that from a lot of moms who have taken all of the Taking Cara Babies classes, is that the months 3 to 4 one was not really worth it, didn't really work for them, especially if their baby had a hard time with that 4-month sleep regression. So I don't really recommend that one very much. It really didn't do much for us. And at that point too, are you making noise? At that point too, I still had very, very strong judgy feelings about sleep training. It's so easy to judge before you're a mom, and even when you are a mom and you're in a different stage. I had the strongest, judgiest opinions about sleep training and people who did it, and that 4-month sleep regression humbled me. We pretty much just went into survival mode and did whatever it took to get any sleep at all. It was hard too because he would wake up so often in the night, just nothing we did could get him to go back to sleep except for nursing him. Like before, if he woke up, we could rock him back to sleep, or give him his binky and he would be able to soothe back to sleep, but nothing would make this baby fall back to sleep except my boob. It got to a point where I was nursing him like 10 times at night, and it's not like he was hungry. It was really, really hard. He started his 4-month sleep regression almost immediately after he turned 4 months. We decided to do the ABCs of sleep when he was 6.5 months, and nothing ever improved with his sleep. If anything, it got worse. It was so hard. He would wake up 8 to 10 times every single night, sometimes more. It was like every single hour, just all night long, up, down, up, down. Obviously, it was exhausting for my husband and I, but it was also exhausting for him. Honestly, I would have kept getting up with him 10 times a night for as long as I needed to if I was the only one who was suffering from it, but my baby was exhausted. He was exhausted and he was miserable. He was so fussy. He was always tired. He would wake up from a night's sleep exhausted. And I don't know, I just got to a point where I was like, this is not working for anyone, and it's definitely not working for him. That really shifted like my mindset on sleep training, because like before I just thought that parents who sleep trained were like so selfish and how dare they, but after actually going through with it and sleep training him, I feel like that was the kindest thing that we could have done for him. It's crazy too because I'm in all of these mom groups now, and I literally had a mom tell me that I should give up my baby to someone who will be better to him and treat him better than me because I sleep trained him. Like that I need to give up my baby because I don't deserve to be a parent for sleep training my baby. Somebody said that to me. As judgy as I was, I never would have said anything like that to anyone or even thought it. I don't think anybody needs to give up their baby they don't deserve to be a parent for sleep training. Now that I'm a parent, I'm like, everybody should do whatever the heck they want with their own kids, within reason, obviously. I don't know, I just don't think that it's anybody's choice to decide what to do with your kids besides you, and you have to do what's gonna work for your family. But I understand the strong feelings about sleep training, especially if you haven't done it or haven't been through it. But now that I've been through it, I literally think that that was the best thing that we have done for our baby. Like obviously it was hard for all of us, but I feel like in the long run, it was such a kind, respectful thing to do, is to teach him how to sleep. Because within a few days of doing it, he was a totally different baby. He was so much happier. He was well rested. Like he started doing things he couldn't do before, like reaching milestones and moving more and rolling over when he couldn't, because all of a sudden he was getting this rest that he needed that he wasn't getting for 2.5 months. I feel like I also hear so many people saying sleep is developmental, like it's not learned, it's not normal for babies to sleep through the night, which I don't understand. Like people who say it's not normal for babies to sleep through the night, like, but what about babies who do sleep through the night? Like, are they not normal? Like obviously I think it's really awesome that my baby sleeps well, like it's great for me, but it's also great for him, and ultimately that's what matters, is what's best for him. I feel like I kind of got off on like a rant there for a second, but anyway, so we had finally gotten to the point where we decided something's got to give. We need to do something to help him, and we decided to do the ABCs of sleep, and I was terrified going into it. I just had it in my head that it was going to be so traumatic and so awful, and I felt so guilty and ashamed and scared and just so many feelings. And I actually had full intentions of vlogging the full 14 days so I could share my experience with sleep training and using the program, but it went so well and so uneventfully that I think I only filmed like the first day and then never had anything to talk about ever again because it just went so well. Where are you headed? The ABCs of Sleep is her third and final class that she offers, and it is a sleep training course. So it does involve crying, which is really hard as a parent. It's basically a modified Ferber method. So if you look up the Ferber method, it's basically where you put your baby in the crib awake, drowsy but awake, and you leave the room, and then if they start crying, you go back in timed increments. So you can either do 5, 10, 15 minutes, or you could do 3, 5, 7 minutes if you want it to be like a little bit less and you want to go in there and be more reassuring to your baby. But you basically just keep doing those check-ins until your baby falls asleep on their own and learns how to fall asleep on their own. And then every time they wake up throughout the night, you start that process over and you do your check-ins, 5, 10, 15 minutes, or whatever increments you decide on. And it's a 14-day program. So you do that for 14 days. And she says pretty much after the 14 days, your baby is good to go. She talks a lot in her program about how it's really, really hard the first few days and how you'll start to see improvement around like days 4 or 5 or something like that. Going into it, my husband and I, like, we just had it in our heads. We were like, we are going to be up all night for the next 2 weeks. This is going to be so hard. I felt confident that I wanted to do it, but I also felt like if it got bad, I wouldn't be able to follow through. You know, it's really hard to listen to your baby crying, even when you know that it's like what's best for them. So the night we decided to start, I was terrified, and you know, he was really confused at first. I mean, he did not cry very much at all. He was in his crib and we were out here watching him on the baby monitor. You can tell when your baby is crying because they are like mad, and when they're crying because they are like in distress. And he was definitely mad crying, but not for very long. And I swear to God that we could watch him on the monitor, literally, like, it was like he figured it out, and like we watched him figure it out. The girl who told me I needed to give my baby away for being such a bad mom, she's like, your baby falls asleep because they cry themselves to sleep because they know they're abandoned and their body shut down. I can tell you 1000% that's not what happened to my baby. He knows he's not abandoned. He did not cry himself to sleep. His body did not shut down to reserve energy. Like, none of that happened. I never responded to that girl because I was like, whatever. I don't know. You can't change people's opinions on things, but that is 1000% not what happened. Like, I watched him on the baby monitor literally be like, oh, this is how you fall asleep. It was insane. I think he cried, it was less than 20 minutes, but it wasn't like he was screaming crying that whole time. It was like he was kind of crying, and then he would stop, and then he'd fuss a little bit, and then maybe he'd cry a little bit more. So I don't know, it wasn't like 20 minutes straight of crying, but then he figured it out. We literally watched him figure out how to fall asleep, and then literally he slept through the night after that. And throughout the night, he would wake up, like, because he was waking up so many times a night, and he would kind of look around, and then he would fall back asleep. Whereas before, he would wake up and he would immediately start screaming, crying, and then would not stop crying until I came in there and put my boob in his mouth. I was like so afraid of this crying sleep training. And then it turned out that the first night we did it, he cried so much less than he had any other night before that. Any other normal night before that, he cried probably like an hour a night. And then we decided to do this sleep training, and it was like the best night of sleep he had had in so long. And I truly feel like he wanted to be sleeping and just didn't know how. And then as soon as that first night, as soon as he figured it out, that was literally like all it took. And then he started sleeping so well at night. I literally couldn't believe it. It really, really changed my entire perspective and view on sleep training. And now when I see these mean moms on the internet talking about how cruel it is to sleep train, I feel like it's almost cruel not to sleep train. Obviously, everybody should decide what they want to do with their own baby, but if your baby is waking up every hour every night and getting horrible sleep and not getting the sleep they need because you think that it's cruel to teach them how to sleep, I don't know. I don't want to get into like anything like that. That's basically doing the same shit she's doing to me, but I think that it's worth considering. If you are super against it, I think that you should ask yourself why and research a little, and I don't know. So along with teaching you exactly how to do the steps to sleep training, it also teaches you how to wean night feedings if you still do them, if you want to wean them, and it teaches you how to do daytime nap training if that's something that you're interested in doing. Also gives you a bunch of example schedules and things like that. When we started sleep training, I decided that I would keep 2 night feedings, and they're both technically dream feeds because you go in and feed them while they're sleeping. The whole idea is that you basically wake them to feed instead of vice versa, and obviously it goes like way more into depth with that in the program too. I would do one dream feed at like 10:30, 11, and then another one around 3 in the morning. I started weaning the 3 in the morning one after about a week of sleep training, and I kept the like 11 o'clock dream feed until recently because I don't know, I just like wasn't ready to drop it. I like thought that he needed it, and so it's nice that you have that option too. It's not like all or nothing. That's another thing I hear about sleep training, is that you're starving your baby, and that's like not the case at all. You can feed your baby as many times as you want to throughout the night. And so that is that. We also never did the nap training. I don't know why. I don't know why I can do nighttime sleep, but I didn't want to do daytime sleep. He takes amazing naps in his crib now, even though we didn't do nap training. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that he is sleep trained at nighttime, and so he's used to sleeping in his bed at night, and that is his familiar, safe sleep space, and so he does take really good naps in there. So yeah, that's kind of everything about the ABCs of sleep, and I do highly recommend that sleep training class. I will say it's not perfect, and I don't think that you should expect your baby to be a perfect sleeper. He is 9 months old now, and I still would not call him a perfect sleeper by any means. He does sleep really well, but you know, he's a person, and not everybody sleeps great every single night. You have mornings when you wake up and you're like, oh, I slept terrible last night. Like, he's a tiny person, he is like that too. I think also she promises 12 hours of sleep in her course, and we rarely ever get a full 12 hours. Normally we can count on 11, but it just depends, and I don't know, every baby is different. They are little people. I don't think you should ever expect perfection from them. I think that a lot of people have a different idea of what sleeping through the night means also. You know, I would say that he sleeps through the night, but he still wakes up during the night sometimes and will fuss and cry, and sometimes I'll still feed him during the night if he wakes up. I don't know, like, but I still would say that he sleeps through the night. So I just think you need to have like reasonable expectations. They're not little robots, they are little people, and every night is going to be different. Every nap is going to be different. And you got to be understanding of that. Now that he's 9 months too, we sleep trained at like around 6. I am definitely a lot looser about his nighttime sleep, and I don't feed him on a schedule at nighttime anymore. After a certain point, I just felt like he was a good sleeper, and that I wasn't going to like ruin his ability to sleep by not following the program to a T anymore. Sometimes I will, you know, put him down asleep instead of awake, and it doesn't ruin anything. And I stopped feeding him on those scheduled times. So I would always feed him at 11:30. And then one night I accidentally fell asleep at like 8 p.m. and I slept through his 11:30 feed, and he never woke up. He just slept through the whole night without waking up. And so the next day I was like, okay, well, let me just see. And I skipped it that night too, and he never woke up. And I was like, oh, dang it, I have been doing this when it's not necessary. I don't know, I feel like that could even have been disrupting his sleep. Like, if he doesn't need that feed and he's not waking up for it, me going in there and waking him up in the middle of his like nighttime sleep is probably not helpful. I decided then that I was going to stop going in there and feeding him while he was sleeping unless he was waking up for it, basically. And that has been working really well for us now. Some nights he wakes up to eat, sometimes he doesn't. He hasn't for like the past couple He hasn't woken up the past couple of nights to eat at all, but some nights he does. I'll go in there and feed him, and I don't know, that's just like what works for us. Back to, you know, babies being people. Some days are different than others for him. Some days he's really, really active and busy and he might be hungrier, or he might not eat as much during the day, and so he'll need to like kind of overcompensate at nighttime, and that's okay. But generally he is an amazing sleeper, and it is absolutely because of the ABCs of sleep. Once again, I highly recommend at least looking into it. You know, watch what she has to say in her videos on her website. Future me popping back on here to say a few things that I kind of forgot to say earlier. Once you finish the 14-day program, basically what you do to handle night wakings after those 14 days is just the same thing as during the training. It's called pop-ins, and it's just doing the 5, 10, 15 or whatever minute intervals that you did during the training, and most of the time this works super well. If he does ever wake up in the middle of the night, normally we'll wait 5 minutes. Usually 5 minutes is all it takes before he falls back asleep, like less than 5 minutes usually. It's very rare that we ever actually have to pop in, and when I do, it's usually just to feed him because I know that he's probably hungry. But I just wanted to add in that, like, obviously you know your baby better than anyone. You know their cries. Your baby will cry when they're frustrated, when they're like angry, when they're protesting something, but there's also cries when you can tell that they need you. And like, just forget all the rules in those situations. Obviously, it's like there are times when like I know that he is teething, or honestly when like nothing is going on, but I know his cries and I know he needs me, and I am like right there for him. I'm not going to be waiting increments for a pop-in, if you know what I mean. That's like one thing too. It's just like, you know your baby the best and do what feels right for you. I also wanted to add that like the sleep training was very easy for me, and that he took to it very easily and quickly, and I know that that's not the case for everyone. I wonder, and I'm sure that sleep training might have gone a lot different for us if it had gone worse than that. I feel like I was ready and committed to doing it, but had it been, you know, like distressing seeming for him, I probably couldn't have followed through with it. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm glad that it went the way it did for me, but I know that it is different for every baby, and that it's not always going to be as easy as it was for me. I'm very grateful for how it went. So once again, you know, do what feels right for you. I do think that even if it is hard, it's probably very worth it for both of you in the long run. And then the last thing I wanted to add is that it is recommended for babies 5 months and plus. I didn't feel like Hawk was ready at 5 months at all. I felt like after 6 months was like a really good time for him, and I'm really, really glad that we did it then, because pretty quickly after he turned 6 months, he became very, very mobile. I just can't imagine how different sleep training would have been if he was able to sit up in his crib, stand up in his crib, crawl around as much as he can. Like, there are nights now when he'll just like wake up in the middle of the night and he will like just sit up in his crib. And I feel like if you were trying to teach your baby to sleep, and they can like physically protest that hard to the point where they are like sitting or standing in their crib, I think that it would be really, really difficult. But maybe not. That's just kind of like my thoughts and assumptions on that. So if you have a younger baby, obviously, once again, you know your baby the best. So if you think that they're ready at 5 months, go for it. I really liked the age that we did it. I felt very comfortable doing it then. Anyway, just wanted to add that in. I just talked for so long. I hope that this was helpful and that you can take something away from this. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, please leave them in the comments below. I will try to answer as many as I can. And also don't forget to follow us on Instagram. I will leave it in the description box and somewhere up on the screen. And if you watched to the end of this video, thank you so much. And I hope that you and your baby start getting some sleep soon. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Okay, we'll see you in our next video.
Reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer